I think is important here, Michael, and that is I got no problem with commemorating events, but I believe that there has to be other things around it. So, for instance, every year people gather in Selma to commemorate Bloody Sunday, yet people come there. Actually, they don't even spend money in Selma. Most of them stay in Montgomery. And, you know, I've said that if you go back next year, there should be a call, there should be an economic summit there. Because economically, Selma looks like it did when Bloody Sunday took place. When I think about people when they go to Memphis to commemorate Dr. King's assassination, the focus is not on economics. It's, again, it's just looking back. And, you know, the thing is, if we have the photos show it today, a number of different civil rights organizations, about 12 of them, met with the Department of Justice. They also had a meeting at the White House. And so, you know, those things are important. But I think what is critically important is for the people to be given an agenda. It's great to come there for a day of speeches, but the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom had an agenda and a purpose attached to it.
I'm going to discuss this Sunday on the African History Network show because this is so important. I hear a lot of people talking about commemorating and rededication, things like this. That's important, but you have to understand the history that caused the need for the March on Washington. They didn't have a march because they were bored. Okay, and this was a continuous fight by African Americans. And, you know, A. Philip Randolph and Brother John Lewis, two members of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So you got two members of Alpha Phi Alpha who were Big Six.
Yeah, of course, you want to slide that in. Go ahead.
And you got, well, hold on. I just want to make sure, we want to make sure this is historically accurate.
No, it is historically accurate, but it was led, but the person that remembers the Alphas. Go ahead.
Remember, A. Philip Randolph is trying to do that for decades. Okay, keep that in mind.
You said tried. You said tried.
Well, he called it off. Remember, 1941. He was going to have
your point, Michael. You ain't gonna win this one. You ain't gonna win it. So
yes, I will. Yeah, because he forced. That's how you got Executive Order 8802. He forced the hand of President Roosevelt. He threatened to put 100,000 African Americans marching on Washington.
1963. Michael, keep going. Keep going. You ain't gonna win this one, Michael.
All right. Okay.
You ain't gonna win
it. What happens is, you know, the biggest thing that people probably remember from August 28, 1963, is Dr. King delivering the speech, "I Have a Dream." The problem is that wasn't the name of the speech. It wasn't called "I Have a Dream" till years later. The original name of the speech was "Normalcy Never Again," and then it was called
"Normalcy No More."
Normalcy No More. Normalcy No More. Then a cancel check, because Dr. King and others, they were challenging the John F. Kennedy administration to hold them accountable to what he said, a promissory note given 100 years earlier. They're talking about 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. And if you actually read the speech, you can probably go to archives.gov or Library of Congress or the King Center. You read the speech. He calls out police brutality. He calls out segregation, poverty, racism, discrimination. It's not until Mahalia Jackson screams out, "Tell them about the dream, Martin," that he shifts to start talking about the beloved community and the dream. The speech was about dismantling white supremacy and racism. This is what he's talking about in the speech. And lastly, if people just read the Clarence B. Jones, who was one of Dr. King's speech writers, who helped write that speech. He wrote an article, op-ed for the Washington Post. It's called "On Martin Luther King Day, Remembering the First Draft of I Have a Dream." And he talks about how in the drafts of the speech, the phrase "I have a dream" didn't exist. And even Y.T. Walker, who was one of Dr. King's lieutenants, one of his aides, he told Dr. King, "Don't talk about that tired dream stuff in this speech." So we have to get the history correct here. They keep trying to distract us with the dream. They do the same thing with the mountaintop speech. They focus on the last 2 minutes. The speech was about 43 minutes.
But first of all, again, my focus here, Kelly, is not the speech. The focus has to be on what was the agenda. And the agenda, all the speakers, and what the focus was to, again, deal with economics. And what I'm saying is, when I attend a lot of these commemorations, we cover them a lot, but frankly, I haven't for a number of them because for me, what is the agenda Monday? See, again, first of all, the actual anniversary is Monday, but the events this weekend are fine. The gathering is fine, but what are we asking our people to do on Monday? That, to me, is what's most important.
It is most important. With anything, you need to have a call to action. And the call to action every year when it comes to the March on Washington, in my opinion, and I don't mean to belittle it whatsoever, but in the grand scheme of things, outside of the day itself, it just feels like the call to action is to come back next year. And that's just insufficient. Like you said, there needs to be an agenda, but not only what the original agenda was, like you said, the initial title or name of the march was for freedom and jobs, or for jobs and for freedom. And especially in the Black community, which is what the focus of this march was at the time, we need to expand that within those two titles. We need to expand that to include the LGBT community. We need to expand that to truly include Black women. We need to expand that to include all Black people, because at this juncture in time, all of it matters.
Well, actually, but the original march was for Black people. And it actually included Black gay people because one of the co-organizers was Byron Rushton.
And I understand that. That's my point. But what I'm saying is that has been overlooked. And we need to reintroduce that into the agenda for this year and the years to come.
What has been overlooked? The fight for Black people?
No, the fact that that Black women were involved, that queer people were involved. We don't talk about that enough. In this conversation, yes, we do. But in the grand conversation of things, this is still a very little.
The point about first of all, the point about the inclusion of women, they were actually not included. Women were on that particular day. Daisy Bates spoke. There was a pre-program. And the reason she spoke is because Merle Evers was actually elsewhere. But on the actual number of speakers for the official program, they were all men. And so one, that's case. A. Philip Randolph and Bob Rushton were the co-chairs of it. The thing for me is, again, I don't mind there being events commemorating. And there are going to be a plethora of speakers who are going to be men, women, young folks, gay folks, single folks, married folks. It's going to be a plethora of people. What I still believe is, what I'm still looking for, and I haven't seen it, that is of the organizers of this, okay, what are we asking people collectively to mobilize around come Monday? See, to me, I think the mistake with a lot of these events is that they're just a flashback. They're a look back. It's a reason to gather. I'm always saying, okay, so like when somebody call a meeting, my first thing is, why are we meeting? Like, why are we here? And that to me is what I struggle with for a lot of these commemorations. I'm not talking about just, I'm trying to expand this, not just this, but I mean, I can bring up a whole bunch, and I get the phone calls and they're like, hey, Roland, can you guys live stream? Can you cover it? And I'm going, okay, what are we doing? What's the purpose? What's actually behind this?
The activity with
for me here, Matt, is like, are there particular bills we're asking our people to push them on Monday? What are we asking Congress to do? What are we asking state? And look, all of these folks, like first, I would love to ask them. I'm going to send a text in a second. So they met with the Department of Justice. I would love to know, did the 12 civil rights organizations request a meeting with Republican House leadership? And what did they say? So for me, and again, so I would love that, because if the Democrats said we'll meet and the Republicans didn't, why not? That's what I'm arguing, that too often with these commemorations, they are events for us to gather. But I just think we got to be pushing our people to what's next? What's the agenda? What's next? What's next? What's next? I appreciate flashbacks. I appreciate people who are going to recount what Dr. King said and what it meant. I appreciate that two of his three children, we know Dexter not going to be there. So MLK III and Bernice are going to be there. But I'm like, okay, why are we mobilizing all the people together to do what?
Well, first, I'll say my youngest son is the namesake of Bayard Rustin. So I'm glad you brought up Rustin's name because his is just as indispensable. But beyond all that, you know what else we have to stop doing, Roland? We have to stop allowing people to join us at commemorations who the rest of the time stand in the way of the progress of what the march and other such events are for. This is what I hate about MLK Day and all of the other events that we have is because the same people who vote against our ability to vote go and then lionize Dr. King, despite working intently against exactly what he fought for. So commemorations are pointless if not only to your point, we're not going to have a campaign, because if you look historically, that's what was engaged in. That's what Reverend Barber is doing these days. That's what people are doing is campaigns, not just point in time events. But beyond that, we cannot allow people to have a seat at the table who actively work against our interests. And the reality of that is that's exactly what we see with Congress. Every time something's not passed that helps the people, we shouldn't allow that congressperson to be at the next commemoration. But too often we, I think that proximity to power is going to make us have progress that we demonstrably don't have. And I'm not the one making policy, but to me, I don't know why we keep inviting people to the table who are not sharing the meal with us. So when it comes to commemorations, not only do we need campaigns, but we need greater accountability. Because if you're going to be at the table with us, then it's incumbent on you to make sure that going forward, this agenda actually materializes into better lives for people.
I'll give an example, Kelly. Who the hell turned MLK Day into a day of service? MLK Day should be a day of protest. MLK wasn't sitting here saying, hey, go contribute to the food bank and go serve some meals. No! The man was fighting, advocating for change. MLK Day should be a day where there are massive protests around shit you care about on that day.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. It is unfortunate that the whole premise of MLK Day has frankly been bastardized and diluted over the years, because the fact that there was a holiday at all dedicated to MLK was a form of protest, was a form of resistance. And because it needed to be palatable in order to be accepted, we have diluted the gravamen of what this holiday means and what even March on Washington means. Because note how we don't say March on Washington for jobs and freedom. We just say the March on Washington. And we don't talk about the other speakers of that day. We only talk about the I Have a Dream speech. All of this is designed to make these events, these momentous, incredible events, more palatable for those who do not, frankly, care about the Black struggle, but want to align themselves with the good so that they are not ostracized themselves. And that is unfortunate.
And look, I just, again, for me here, Michael, tomorrow's commemoration should be followed up with calling on every follower of every organizational leader that speaks tomorrow to blow the phone lines of Congress up, demanding a living wage, $15 an hour. Again, it was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Tomorrow should be saying, come Monday, we are going to have our folks hit every House Republican, every Republican state legislature when it comes to fighting against these voter suppression bills. and Monday should be a renewed call for President Joe Biden to publicly demand for Congress to take up the George Floyd Justice Act this year as well. Why? Again, I'm mentioning three very specific themes that were in that particular speech that MLK gave. I just don't want to see folks tomorrow gathering just to gather in the heat.
Yeah, so Roland, this is an example why this show is so important, because I've seen coverage in mainstream media of the 60th commemoration, and they didn't go in depth like this. So
hell no, because they full of shit.
Number one. Well, I'm talking about even when they have civil rights leaders, black civil rights leaders. I'm not going to call them.
What? No, they're full of shit. I'm telling mainstream white media loves performative Negro events.
Right.
And they go there so let me tell you how this goes. They go, okay, so we want to get a couple questions. So, so-and-so, how does it feel to be here in the same place Dr. King gave his speech in 1960?
Exactly.
And then they go, is his dream still alive? And then like and then if you go, have you read the speech?
Right.
Well, exactly. No, I'm just asking questions. I just want to get, about 30 seconds. If you could just sort of speak about, then it's like, were you there? Like, no, I was born in 1968. It was like, speech was in 1963. I mean, that's literally what they do. And so it is not designed for any nuance. And they damn sure don't bring it present day.
Exactly. So a few things here. Number one, yes, there has to be marching orders. The conditions have to be connected to the policy and the bills and what you're demanding of the people. Yes, an agenda has to be presented that is tied to also what they were demanding in 1963 as well. Okay, but something that's extremely important is the history surrounding 1963 and why they had to have that march, okay, has to be dealt with as well. And the real history of Dr. King, has to be taught on Dr. King Day and when we have these commemorations. So part of Dr. King Day should be protests for policies that you want. But the other part of Dr. King Day should be studying Dr. King, because I'm telling you, most Americans, regardless of race, don't understand how revolutionary Dr. King was, haven't read any of his 5 books. And Roland, you did an excellent job when you had Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. on your show, News One Now with Roland Martin, where he talked about his book, This Nonviolent Stuff to Get You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. Because Dr. King owned guns until Bayard Rustin convinced him to get rid of his guns, okay? So when we start understanding the armed resistance that was involved in the modern day civil rights movement, as you talked about, and then you interviewed Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. for 2 hours on your nationally syndicated radio show as well, after you had him on your show, on your TV show. When we start digging into this history, we understand how much we have been lied to about these people and about this movement, and then we'll start seeing some real results coming from it.
Final comment, Michael. Excuse me, Matt.
I just think that we can't keep inviting people who are working against our interests to come to these commemorations so they can get an attaboy from the media and people who watch it.
All right, folks, that is it for us. So let me just say this here. I will not be at the event tomorrow. I'm actually going to pop. I'm not going to happen. And again, to the folks who are going to be there, not a problem. Enjoy the event. I'm sure it'll be on C-SPAN. I'm sure people will be covering it. And it's just to understand one of the reasons why, because for me, what I often say, and I say this all the time, the biggest thing for me is I want to know, what are we doing Monday? A lot of times when people invite me to cover these events, I'll tell them, hey, I'm skipping that event, but invite me to the 6-month follow-up meeting. And that to me is what's most important. What is going to be the follow-up meeting? And so I already planned, this week, Dave Chappelle has been he's been in New York City. He's had 4 shows at Madison Square Garden, Tuesday, Wednesday. His birthday was Thursday. He has a show tonight. And he has another show tomorrow. So I'll be at the Chappelle show tomorrow night.
If you like this type of information, be sure to visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. You can register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Scroll down the page as information about our radio show, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my social media platforms and Blog Talk Radio. Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach my flagship online history class. It's a 12-week online course. Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, the Moors, and the Ma'af, for understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. The course is on sale. It's more than half off. It's on sale only $60. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. I do a PowerPoint presentation with book references. There's 15 books every reference, 80 to 100 articles. We have video clips. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. So even after the class is over with, even after the 12-week online course is over with, you still have full access. You can go back and watch it a year from now, 2 years from now. You can watch the entire course. The content is PG-13. You can use this with your family, use this with your children. We have some video clips here to give previews of the class also that you can watch and then register for the course. And then on Sundays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. We go through a look at history chronologically from 1800 to 1968, 1970. And we highlight Black resistance movements, and we see what leads to the Civil War taking place. We studied the Civil War, Reconstruction, 1865, 1877. Great Migration, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, and the Jim Crow era. Okay, to understand what happened to us after slavery ended, what were the laws and policies put in place to bring us to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. And your understanding of politics is directly related to your understanding of history, especially the last 500 years of history. Okay, so you can register for those classes at our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Also, if you want to support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. And when you click right here, it takes you right to our QR code for Cash App. $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it'll say Michael. And this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, keep financing the African History Network. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live, and follow me on Instagram as well at Michael Imhotep on Instagram. All right, hopefully you learned a lot today. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Is your child struggling with reading, writing, learning loss, and a culturally irrelevant curriculum? Do you want your child to be outstanding at reading and writing and also take pride in their culture? Then you want Reading Revolution Online. Reading Revolution Online is a web-based reading support program. We serve scholars in grades K through 8, and through our innovative approach, we help them build reading confidence and cultural identity development, equipping them for success in school and life. They learn about Black heroes and sheroes through captioned videos, reading selections, and other activities. Reading Revolution Online is an experience for the whole family. Do it for the culture. Go to readingrevolution.org and get your membership today.